Today, I'm going to discuss Brightics AI Accelerator 4.0 user interface. We've been working on this for some time, and today I'm very happy to demonstrate the UI for our server. So first thing first, let's discuss authentication first. So our entire system has been rewritten to use JSON Web Tokens. So our user interface is based on JWT tokens for authentication and authorization. In addition to that, we have a local authentication provider, our local accounts right here. We also work with Samsung R&D Cloud token provider, which is based on DEX, I believe. Okay, and we're integrated to work with that. In addition, we work with Okta. You may know about this company, and Auth0 as well. So a little bit about Okta and Auth0. They allow us to bring in a lot of other third-party connections. For example, here's a list of Auth0 connections. So if we can work with Auth0, integrations with all these companies, then their own integration identity provider is free essentially for us for some token amount of payment to Auth0. Okay, so here is a directory of all other login providers. Similarly, for Okta is very similar. They provide multi-factor authentication. Then also they provide LDAP and SAML based authentication, and we have to pay them and their professional services for integration, of course. So this allows us to integrate with very, very large customers where we are not really doing the authentication provider. They will be Okta and Auth0 will be providing the authentication provider, and we're just integrated with JWT. So let's move on from this topic of authentication. For this demo, I'm just gonna use a local account. All right, I'm logged in. So this is our brand new homepage. We have worked on this based on our feedback from customers. Our customers, they want minute details, analytics on what's really going on with the cluster. They want to know how other users are using the cluster, and they want to know details about everything about what's going on in the cluster right now. So right now, I'm the only user right now. There's not much going on. The other thing I want to show you is that we also have put in a dark mode. So you can switch the dark mode anytime and go back. And you can look at all the graphics. They look much nicer in dark mode, in my opinion. All right, let's move back. So that's our homepage. The homepage has been architected so that 1,000 users can be running on this homepage at the same time, and that should scale. It has been designed for that. Moving on to Jupyter Lab, I'm going to assume that you are already familiar with your previous generation of user interface, and they will all look similar to you. So in here, you see a small bar at the top. Let me just refresh that. And what it shows is that there are 4 GPUs that are available, 2 have been allocated, and 6 is the total capacity of this cluster. How you launch a Jupyter Lab, you select a Jupyter image, and you launch a Jupyter image right here, okay? And it will show up at the bottom, and you can click on the link when it's ready, and you have a working Jupyter image, Jupyter container for yourself. Moving on to SSH terminals is very similar. You can list your own image right here using this button. You can click one and launch your own session. It will come here at the bottom. And you can access using SSH through a SSH gateway. You can launch CPU containers and GPU containers. You can control complete environment from here. And in fact, this is one of our most popular features. Moving on to our bread and butter, which is automatic deep learning with hyperparameter optimization. I'm happy to introduce a new feature in AIA 4.0 UI for model analytics. So in this feature, we're going to visualize model performance in terms of accuracy and loss. It turns out the data scientists really care about their previous runs so that they get an insight into what they should change in future run. So let me select a job that I have run before. And here we are visualizing TensorBoard data in terms of training loss, validation loss, and accuracy. Now, this curve is very important. And what we want to do is from run to run, optimize it to make losses lower and accuracy higher. So I'm going to pick one more job right now to compare. Okay, let me pick job number 8. And what do we see here side by side for the same kind of summary? Okay, we can compare how things are going. In fact, we can compare multiple of them. So I'm going to compare another one. So that will also show up side by side. And that gives us some intuition about how our jobs are progressing and how we need to make things better. For a little bit. We have made analytics on jobs you run very easy to use. So a couple of things, you can look at the box with more real estate like this way, clicking on this button. And then let's look at some details about a job here. Okay, let me just give you some more area for the job. You can see this. If you want more area, you can even click on here and look at all the details. Now, most of the analytics are really comparative. You want to see similar jobs you run, see how you have gotten better or worse. So for that, you select multiple jobs. And as you can see, these jobs have been compared here. So let's just look at this in detail. And you can see that many of the things are actually the same and they don't really add any value. So what I'm going to do is remove the duplicates and then look at what are the unique values. That's one way to understand how we have gotten better or worse. We also offer some visual ways to understand if you've gotten better or worse. So let me just select some more. And this actually, what I'm doing here applies to individual jobs or hyperparameter optimization jobs as well. So I'm going to look at a parallel coordinate chart. Let's look at this a little bit more. So from here, you can sort of get insight into what kind of hyperparameters are yielding you higher accuracy. You can also export to a PDF your chart. There are some other things also, like for example, if you want to look at the details and you want to scroll, you can see there's a header here. You can make it non-sticky and the header will disappear. And you can export your grid also to a PDF. Moving on, our AutoReal inference is somewhat very similar. Okay, all the features are very similar. Once you know how to use the AutoReal training, you know how to use HP AutoReal training, you know how to use AutoReal inference, you know how to use AutoML HPO training is very similar, and AutoML inference. I'm not going to go into the detail because you probably are already familiar with our features. Now, moving on, as I said, we have learned from our customers that they really want to get a lot more analytics about what's really going on in the cluster. So we have added some more nice insights inside the cluster, what's really going on in the main application. Okay, these actually look much nicer in a dark mode. So let me just turn on the dark mode. Okay, so this is a cluster-wide health. What's really going on in the cluster? You can get some idea of if the cluster is loaded, not really loaded, and so on. When is a good time to run a job? You can also look at a node level inside a cluster. Let me just select a node. And you can get insights into how healthy is the node, cluster node, and so on. Okay, and you can see we give you a lot of insights about how busy is the disk or the network and so on. Our application actually has an embedded Postgres, and we will try to give you some information about the Postgres also. one of the top feature requests have been from the users that please let us know how the GPUs are doing what kind of job. So right now I'm basically running one notebook, and that notebook is running on GPU 0 and I am the user. So if this was a 256 GPU cluster, there will be card like this all over filling up the page and describing what each GPU is actually busy with. In addition, people want to know, okay, what is the queue like? What is the global queue? What has been recently allocated? What failed and so on. And also a request has been made from the users to know that, or shall I say the IT part of the organization, to let them know which users are hardly using any GPUs with a low percentage. So maybe perhaps if you have occupied a GPU and are not really using it, we could prod the user to like give up the GPU so that other users can use it. So that is it in terms of analytics and more insights into what the users are doing. We also have a local user management. If you're already familiar with our earlier application, you will see that it's very, very similar to what we had done earlier. So with that, I am looking forward to our users enjoying a lot more analytics and an easy to use interface, and they will be in the know about what's really going on in the cluster at any time. So that is one of our core value proposition that we are adding this year in terms of visibility into what each user is doing, what the lab is doing, and what the entire organization is doing, and how the cluster is being utilized at all or in which way. That is all I had. Thank you so much. I am looking forward to shipping this pretty soon.